Welcome to Talking Points. I'm glad to be with you today as we endeavor on a part 2 of the paradigm has shifted. Think that in light of all that we've gone through in these last 12 months, I think that it's time to reflect. It's really time to really think about what are next steps. It's time to think about how to be better. It's most certainly time to think about how to do better. And so as we go into part 2, first of all, I want to start out by reflecting upon what we talked about in part 1. So here we go. The paradigm has shifted, part 2. And here's a quote by Roberto Esposito. If we think about it, all great discoveries and paradigm shifts are stimulated by some external event. If we think about it, all great discoveries and paradigm shifts are stimulated by some external event. So when we think about that, there hasn't been anything in life that has led to improvement. There hasn't been anything in life that has led to a better way of doing things that did not start out from a set of principles that were guided by experience and the like. And what happened? Something changed or some breakthrough occurred, and thereby everything had to shift, or rather, should I say, the paradigm had to shift. And we can kind of see that when we look at different ages. For example, the industrial age. You know, when we thought about life, as it were, with factories and manufacturing companies. And so life itself was built around the paradigm that was associated with, with the industrial age. But then as things began to morph into what we have now as a digital age or the information age, depending upon how you begin to interpret it, we find that, well, there are a lot of things that existed in the industrial age that are antiquated they're antiquated to the point that they're no longer functional, or they're no longer operational, or no longer needed or useful in the digital or information age. For example, when computers came into play and computers began to were manufactured and developed to where they could do the same thing that a human being could do, what happened? This digital or this computerized age began to cause a lot of jobs to be lost. So therefore things shifted, the paradigm shifted, rather than being dependent upon manpower, we began to lean more and more toward what we see developing and occurring is what we call artificial intelligence, which is part and parcel of this digital age. So the paradigm has shifted, and there are different ways, other ways of looking at that. The way you do business, the way you had been doing business, the way you've been managing personnel, the way you've been managing even your household, or those who are faith inclined, the way you've been doing church. And so as a brief review, the last time we were together, we learned the meaning of the term paradigm and how every aspect of life operates from some established paradigm. We learned how COVID-19 has put the whole world to the test. And this is not just, this is some straight talk here. This is some real talk. The whole world has been put to the test as a result of this COVID-19 outbreak. Not only have we seen a loss of life in terms of mortality of humankind, but we've also seen the loss associated with business, the loss associated with just lifestyle in general. The whole world has been put to the test, and our global response has been the beginning of a new paradigm. I said our global response is the beginning of a new paradigm because the paradigm has shifted, but probably a better way of putting it, the paradigm is shifting because why? We as a global society do not know fully on how we're going to morph or how we're going to readjust or how we're going to navigate and move forward as a result of what we've experienced through this pandemic. But this pandemic has given us a lens to understand how paradigms work and how paradigms shift. Lastly, we also talked about some of the negative aspects of a shifting paradigm. Conspiracy theories and false prophecies, which were manufactured to give humanity the meaning of the present and who to blame in some cases. Everybody wants to understand what it is that we're going through. They want to have some way to really figure out. So from a religious standpoint, we find people say, oh, we're in the last days. Yet, if we read the Bible, we find that the last days were predicated upon the outpouring of the Spirit that we find there in Acts chapter 2, that in the last days, God will pour out his Spirit upon all flesh. So the last days, if we interpret it from that lens, is not predicated upon some calamity or some immediate discomfort or immediate change that we see in society in the present time. But it goes back to the last days began a long time ago. Now that's a whole different conversation, but because people desire, and this is nothing wrong with this, people do desire to make sense of the madness, to make sense of what they're going through. And so we begin to lean toward conspiracy theories. We begin to lean toward, ideas that are more religious based and the like to interpret how to respond to what's going on. All of this are the outcome of a shifting paradigm because people are grappling for straws, as it were, to try to figure it out or to be first to point out this is the problem or first to point out that's the problem. And so humanity wants to give meaning to the present. And oftentimes it winds up being a finger pointing contest as to why we're going through what we're going through. But we need to look beyond those obvious negative aspects and try to get the big picture as to how has the paradigm shifted and what is my personal, what is my ecclesiastical, what is my business role or business response or ecclesial response, that is coming from the church, or just what is my basic human response as to what's going on, as to what's happening. Because why? The paradigm is shifting. And so I want to talk about some things today I think that's really going to bless you and is going to really get you to look at things just a little bit different. So in order to do that, I think I want to talk about, I want to pick up where I left off the last time. And when I introduced the concept that the test preceded the shift. Now, I know some of you preachers out there, I know that that's probably something that you probably want to run with that. Go ahead, I'll give you permission. That's a good topic to preach on. The test preceded the shift. It is true that when we are tested, there are revelatory aspects that occur as a consequence of the test. Now, a lot of time when we're tested, sometimes we're not even paying attention. Sometimes we're going through and we just want to hurry up and get out. We don't want to experience the pain of the discomfort. We don't want to manage the discomfort. We don't want to experience what we're going through. We just want to find some way to get out of it. And hence we find a lot of people have talked about the rapture and things of this sort. This is for those who are Christ followers. Because of these last days, Jesus is about to break through the sky and rapture us out of here. Well, a lot of that thinking has to be, I really don't want to go through anything. I really don't want to suffer. And so we just got to be honest. And so we look for things to give us an escape from the things that we, sometimes that we really have to go through. So it is true that when we are tested, that there are revelatory aspects that occur as a consequence of the test. Even when you were attending school and when you were giving a pop quiz or a test, what were they evaluating? They were evaluating whether or not you learned the material, whether or not that you grasped the concept, and now here's an opportunity for you to display that I know this stuff. And so the test just evaluates on whether or not you know or how much you don't know. It's not just to give you a fail or a pass, but it's to really reveal, where you're falling short or where you're excelling at. And if we can begin to look at tests from that point of view, we will have a better appreciation for the things that we're going through. Last time we were together, we quoted from the book of James, and the book of James told us that when any man is tested or tempted, he said that it reveals that, as we go through these things, we learn some things. It engages, it activates endurance, it activates patience. And he said, allow or permit patience to have her complete or perfect work so that we won't be lacking. And so sometimes tests that we go through are ways by which we can grow. And that should be the outcome of any kind of test that we go through. So let's appreciate this fact that the test preceded the ship. Or another way that we can look at it is when an experiment is tested, the theory that it was based upon, or the hypothesis of a research study when conducted, it reveals whether the theory or hypothesis is either validated or disapproved. And so, or disproven, whatever the case it might be. So the scientists are engaging in the experiment. They're hopeful that their theory that the theory that they have will yield the kind of outcomes so that they can improve upon it. This is a process. And if we understand it, then we will find ourselves having the need to just kind of distance ourselves or rethink about trying to rush through something to get to the end and rather enjoy or rather relish the process. In fact, there was a gospel song that came out years ago, and we've all heard it. Lord, don't move my mountain, but give me the strength to climb. And what we can learn from that particular gospel song is that one way of learning from it is that don't just quantum leap me out of what I'm going through, but give me all the strength that I need to go through it. Why? Because as a result of that, I'm going to grow. As a result of that, the experience is going to give me a fresher insight. And so that's how we are to look at tests, because the test preceded the ship. Another way of looking at this paradigm issue is when we talk about structures. Now, when a structure is finished, its final test comes when it passes a set of evaluations. And these evaluations are there to what? Determine if the structure is suitable for occupation. However, these evaluations are what? Based on what? Experience and history. something that they have gone through before, something they had learned from in the past, and some historical context is how things have evolved over the years. In fact, the way that people build today, homes or buildings, is quite different than how they built homes, that were, 2,000 and 3,000 years ago. Yet, based upon some of those same principles that were employed 2,000 and 3,000 years ago, those things have been improved upon through humankind developing and evolving. And so when we think about paradigm shifts, it's part of an evolution that things need to change because of how we are engaging or because of some consequence or some event that's happened that has changed how we are relating, that has changed how we're navigating, that has changed how we're being human and how humankind are processing what we're going through. So these evaluations are based on experience and history, and based upon what was a learned paradigm, or let me say, and based upon what was learned, a paradigm was established, a way of operating, a way of doing things. We that pastor churches, we have a way of operating. We have a way of doing things. And in churchdom, that way of operating, when it's documented, in some cases called a polity. Like those who grew up in the Baptist genre, we have what they call a Baptist polity, or there's a Methodist polity, or there's an Episcopal polity, a way of operating, a way of doing things. Yet I'll be the first to tell you that because of COVID-19, many of us have had to rethink and restructure just how we do church. We have been thrust into a virtual reality by which how we do worship, how we preach the word, and even how, we, raise offerings and even how we give. All of this has changed because why? We need to obey the science so we can stay healthy. What good would it be if everybody got sick, you got nobody to pastor? Or if your pastor got sick, you have no one to give you the word. And so there are good and there are bad. There are positive, there are pros and cons as to what? This virtual reality that we have been thrust into because of what? A public health, a global public health crisis. It has challenged how we've been doing things in the past. And what have we wanted? Many of us have longed for the way things used to be. In fact, it revealed the last time we talked about how spoiled we are and how we want things the way they used to be. In fact, there were people that were forecasting, in about 90 days, we'd be back the way we are. And here we are 12 months past this particular event or this particular pandemic emergence on our soil. And we're finding ourselves, we still haven't got it all figured out. And so we're learning, hopefully, a different way of operating and a different way of doing things. We, in many cases, are shifting the paradigm. Now let's talk about this a little bit further. I'm sure we all can reflect on things that have occurred in our lifetime or what we read in history books that validates this point. The test preceded the shift. The truth is, tests are necessary. They reveal the viability of a structure, organization, or system. They reveal what's working and what is not working. And based upon these findings, guess what? We change our reality. We make adjustments. We shift our paradigm. So, as we talk about this today, I want to talk briefly about some spiritual values of structural testing. What kind of house have you built? And the word house here, you can insert whatever it is that you want. But for the purposes of really understanding this text here, we find that Jesus is giving a parable about two builders. And this is found in Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 through 27. And it says, everyone who hears these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on rock. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house. But it did not fall because it had been founded on rock. Verse 26, and everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain fell, the floods came, the winds blew and beat on that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. So here in this parable, Jesus makes a comparison between two builders, considering one as wise and the other as foolish. And what made the wise builder wise is that he paid attention to what Jesus said. And what made the other foolish is that he disregarded what Jesus said. Now, interesting enough, both builders experienced the same storm. Both builders experienced the same storm. One was prepared and the other was not. And the outcomes were evident. However, today, I want to take a different approach in interpreting this passage. Rather than it be the cut and dried negative connotation of failing to heed the Messiah's voice or failing in our personal discipleship, let's consider this. Let's look at a different way of extracting spiritual values from this particular passage. So we're going to look at revisioning the parable of the two builders. What kind of house do you intend to rebuild? Maybe the lesson here is that we already know the path that we should be taking. But due to our willingness to do things our way, we proceed to do something that we know is going to fail. And you know the old adage, if you just continue to do the thing that over and over again, it's stupidity. We all know that. But there are some times that we, in essence, already know that the path we're going down, that we already know the things that we should be doing. Yet our willingness to, I'm going to try it my way anyway. I'm going to do it my way. You've already heard good advice. You've already heard sound wisdom. And yet, it's just human nature that sometimes in our own pride that we don't want to listen to anybody else. And so that becomes problematic. And so maybe that's something we can see here, that the reason why this builder chose to build on sand is because of their willingness to do things the way they wanted to be done. And they knew that it was going to fail, but because they wanted to do it that way anyway, they did it. And some people know that. Or could it be what I call the shortcut mentality? We've been informed of the investment that we have to make, but the offer of a shortcut appeals to us, which says what? Oh, I don't have to put forth much effort. Oh, I don't have to make those necessary sacrifices educationally to arrive at that. I can take a shortcut, or whatever the case it might be. The shortcut mentality will result in exactly that. It will cut you short from the desired outcome that you want to have. I remember, and I can give some examples. But specifically to stay on topic here, let us examine in our own life, how many shortcuts have we taken? And how many shortcuts did we take that we actually were able to get ahead? Or did that shortcut we take actually catch up to us, actually, put us in a position? Now, I'll give you this example. There have been people that have taken shortcuts in their educational process. Some things require you to have, basically a bachelor's degree. Some require you to have a master's degree or something higher. And there's been cases where individuals have placed on their resume a particular degree that was not verified by the U.S. Department of Education. Now, at the time, they probably went through this and probably didn't even know. But when human resources began to examine and began to call these particular, or began to examine these particular degrees that you've listed on your resume, they discover that the school you went to or the course you took was not approved or accredited by the Department of Education. So they've called people on the carpet and they said, we're going to have to let you go because this degree is not approved. Or in some cases, they'll give you a chance to go back to school to correct this because you're a good person and you're a good employee, whatever the case it might be. But in lots of cases, I've seen people actually lose their job because they list a degree that was not approved by the Department of Education. Now, however, that may not apply in every situation. But when we're navigating in a world that's out there that does require us to have a certain type of accreditation for our education, then there is no shortcut for that. We need to really follow the protocols to allow us to, compete appropriately with others who want the same kind of position. That's just an example of how a shortcut mentality can catch up with us. So what am I saying? Be sure that in your degree and in your school search, look very carefully as what your employer or what your field that you plan to go into, see what they require. And be sure that those schools that you attend are schools that produce the kind of degrees that match the kind of vocation or occupation that you pursue. In many cases, are they approved by the Department of Education? That's just a thought. That's just something that we have to consider and to bypass the impulse of what I call a shortcut approach to arriving at a desired destination. Let me say this again. We've been informed of the investment that we have to make, but the offer of a shortcut appeals to us. So what do? We choose to take an alternate route. And when it fails or when it comes up short, who are we to blame? In many cases, we knew better. Now this, in one case, is about admitting to our own flaws. Sometimes it's about discovering something that we just really didn't know. But particularly in the case of admitting to your own flaws, there are things that we have to do. Number one, we have to be honest and owning the outcome without pointing the finger at someone or something else to blame. If you already knew better, what do? When you know better, we do better. So this is a different way of really looking at this parable of the two builders. Let me just say this. Sometimes things have to go awry so that we can learn to do better. What kind of house do you intend to rebuild? Again, that house could be your ministry. That house could be your business. That house could just be just how you do family. As a result of what we have gone through in the last 12 months, what kind of house do you intend to rebuild? And what are you intending to do to actually get things moving along in the direction that you desire? You can do all you can to prepare. And it doesn't matter how informed we are. It doesn't matter how woke we are. Things can still go awry. And when things go awry, what kind of house do you intend to rebuild? What paradigm shifts must you engage in personally or corporately or professionally to navigate and to move forward in a productive way? Let me say this. The greatest enemy of greatness is not wanting to make a mistake. Let me say that one more time. The greatest enemy of greatness is not wanting to make a mistake. We can accept that growth and success in life is the outcome of experiences that in a lot of cases came from things that went wrong. We've heard this mentioned hundreds of times going through school, how that the light bulb, how many mistakes that the inventor of the light bulb made before he was able to get the light bulb to function appropriately. The greatest enemy of greatness is not wanting to make a mistake. In fact, some people won't move forward for fear of making a mistake. But the truth is, all that we see operating in life, all the previous paradigms were all based upon what? The outcome of experiences. And in a lot of cases, things that went wrong. I heard someone say this, and I saw it this week. I don't know if it was on Facebook, but they said that the value of a mentor is that they were an individual that made all the mistakes so that you don't have to make them. So you learn from their mistakes. We all should have mentors, people that we look to, that they can advise us and give us advice. Hey, look, I got to where I'm at, not because I paid the shortcut, but because I paid the price. And these were the mistakes I made along the way. I'm passing on to you best practices for how you can possibly navigate in your own future. So, this is another way of really looking at this parable, the parable of the two builders. Even if I had a sandy start, the last time, I can do better this time by changing the choice of foundations, the choice of depth. I can be better prepared for whatever wind, rain, and flood comes my way. Can I say that one more time? Even if I had a sandy start the last time, I can do better this time by changing the choice of foundations and the choice of depth. I can be better prepared for whatever rain, wind, and flood comes my way. That's our time today here on The Paradigm is Shifted Part 2. Next week, we're going to talk about The Paradigm is Shifted Part 3. And I trust that you've learned something today that makes sense from this parable. Don't be upset if you built on sand. Don't look at that, I'm a failure, but rather if you built on sand, I got an opportunity now to correct some things, to make some adjustments, to shift my paradigm by choosing a better foundation, by choosing a better depth or better location, so that I can rebuild and be prepared for a better future. God bless you. We'll talk to you and we'll see you next time here on Talking Points.